Okay. Today's daf is Masechta Baba Kamma daf Nun Gimel. Okay, Nun Gimel. And we're going to begin from daf Nun Beis Amid Beis. The daf Nun Beis Amid Beis by the last line. Okay, here we go. I'm going to make it bigger. Today's learning is Lezech Nishmas Yaakov ben Rabbi Yehuda Lev. This is Lewis's father and Yankel Kogel's Mechitten. So Yaakov ben Yehuda. Okay, so here we go. We're discussing over here what it said in the Mishnah. The Mishnah said that if a man, right here in the Mishnah, it said that if an animal fell face forward into a bar because of some noise, okay, chayev, then the owner of the bar is obligated to pay. Your animal falls face forward, you're obligated to pay. What happens la'acharav? It falls on its back. So then you're not obligated to pay. So we'll see what that means. So let's learn the Gemara. So we learned a pretty well-known machlokes between Rav and Shmuel. And this is if you understand the psukim, remember the pasuk that says about bar, that if you open a bar and an ox or donkey fall into that bar, you're obligated to pay. But why did the Torah obligate the owner of the bar to pay? So according to Rav, the reason why you're obligated to pay is because when you dig a bar in a Rishus HaRabim, there's toxic fumes in that bar. So what really caused the death of the ox or the donkey that fell into the bar is the toxic fumes. But the fact that the animal banged itself on the ground at the bottom of the bar, that is not the reason why you're chayiv. That's according to Rav. And according to Shmuel, okay, hi, Sheldon. Hi, Solomon. Shlomo. We're just discussing over here Rav and Shmuel. What is the reason why the Torah said that when an animal falls into a bar, you have to pay? Rav said the reason is because it smells toxic fumes. But the fact that it landed very hard on the ground at the bottom of the pit, that's not why the Torah obligated the owner of the bar to pay. Because the ground of the pit belongs to the Rishus HaRabim. So it doesn't belong to the guy that dug the pit. So therefore, it's because of the fumes. That's what killed the animal. And that's what obligated the owner of the bar to pay. According to Shmuel, no, the Torah obligated to pay. Once you dig a bar, even the ground becomes like your ground. And even when the animal falls into that pit and fell with the force of gravity and hit the bottom of the pit, that's also a reason why the Baal HaBar has to pay. So now that we learned in the Mishnah that if an animal falls head forward into the pit, and then you're obligated to pay, and if it falls backwards into the pit, you're not obligated to pay. That makes perfect sense according to Rav. Amar Rav, lefanav mamish. If it falls head first, so it smelled the toxic fumes. That's why you're obligated to pay. The owner of the bar is obligated to pay. La'acharav, but if the animal fell on its back into the bar, then you're not obligated to pay, and that's acharav mamish. Because what killed the animal? The bang when it hit the bottom of the floor. Well, Rav holds that the bang is not what obligates a person to pay because of bar. V'zeh bar. Both of this is talking about that the animal fell into the pit. And therefore, Rav goes according to his reasoning, and he says, Rav said, bar shechiv alav Torah lehav lechavotay. The reason why a bar has to pay is because it's because of the hevel, it's because of the toxic fumes, not because it banged itself. So therefore, very simple, an animal that falls with his nose into the pit, you chayiv to pay. If it falls backwards into the pit, you're not obligated to pay because what's going to kill the animal? The banging. That's not the Torah doesn't hold the Baal HaBar liable just for the banging of the shore on the pit. Shmuel says no. If in a bar, if it falls, whether it falls face forward, whether it falls backwards, you're always obligated to pay if the animal falls into a pit. Shmuel goes according to his reasoning. That the Torah held the owner of the pit liable, the one that dug the pit liable, not only for this toxic fumes, but certainly because the animal is going to fall with a bang to the ground, even though it's not, the ground doesn't really belong to the owner of the bar, but still, the Torah holds that the owner of the guy that dug the pit is liable. So then, where did we? How do you explain the Mishnah that says if the animal falls backwards, you're not obligated to pay? Answers the Gemara, going to niskal babar v'nafal achori bar chutz labar. That means animal got scared, slipped on the wall of the pit, and then fell on the sidewalk, not into the manhole, but it fell on the sidewalk. So it didn't fall into the pit. And it banged on the public ground. We're not going to hold the owner of the pit liable. Esvei, so the Gemara asks, so it's a very fantastic machlokis between Rav and Shmuel, whether if an animal falls backwards into a pit, are you chayiv to pay or not? Esvei, bebar, we learned in a brisa, bebar, bein lefanav, whether an animal falls forward, bein laachra, whether the animal falls backwards into the pit, chayiv, you're obligated to pay. So to Yufta the Rav, this is a refutation against Rav. Rav said that if an animal falls backwards into the pit, you're not obligated to pay. Answers the Gemara, Rav Chizda explained, Moidu Rav, the barber shusei dechayev, that price is talking about a pit, not in the public domain, but a pit that was in somebody's private property, and he invited somebody to come in, and the guy that came in with his ox fell into the pit. So therefore, the ground really belongs to the owner of the property. So therefore, even that, Rav would agree that in that case, whether the animal fell face forward or backwards into the pit, you're obligated to pay. Because the owner of the ox will say, no matter what, if my ox died because of the toxic fumes in that pit, you dug a pit, and that toxic fumes is your responsibility. Is it because of the bang hit the ground, and that's why the animal died. The ground belongs to you, and therefore you're responsible for the bang because you're the owner of this property. But according to Rav, a barber shusarabim, and the animal falls backwards, you're not obligated to pay. Rabba says, here we're talking about over here, bimis hapech, which means that the animal fell. You're right; it fell backwards. It fell forward. Both the times it fell forward into the pit. And yet, right before it hit the ground, it turned over and then fell on its back. In that case, well, as it was falling, it smelled toxic fumes. And therefore, that's why that brisa says that even if it turns over, even if it lands on its back, you're obligated to pay. So that's how Rabbah will answer the brisa according to Rab. Let's read it inside. The nafal apeh. Really, it fell face forward. This apeh, and right before it landed, it turned over, v'nafal agabe, and it fell on its back. The havla dahanebe ahanebe. The toxic fumes that did its damage worked because it as it was falling, it smelled the toxic fumes, and that's caused its death. And who cares if it turned over and banged on the ground? Rabbi Yosef says that the Bryce is not talking about you have to pay for the ox. It's not talking about the ox that fell backwards or forward. Do you have to pay for the ox or not? The question is, does the ox have to pay for the damage that it did for the bar? Now, we're talking about a bar that had water in it. So, and therefore, and how does an ox do damage by falling into the water? It's because it now causes the water to be soiled or not drinkable anymore. So that's what the question. So therefore, that's why it says no matter which way the ox fell, you're obligated to pay. Hacha beniski, Rav Yosef. That's how Rav Yosef answered the brisa. Hacha over here, we're talking about beniski bar b'shar askina. We're talking about the damages a bar that does to that the ox did to the pit. Maininu, how's an ox cause a pit to be damaged? It soiled and spoiled the water that was in it and made it undrinkable. It doesn't matter how the animal fell, forwards or backwards, you're obligated to pay. So 3 ways to answer this brisa that it should not be difficult against Rav. But nevertheless, Tana Rav Chananya l'suyuda Rav. Rav Chananya has a brisa that supports Rav. The nafal, again, what's Rav's opinion is? If a bar b'shus harabim, the only way the animal, you're obligated to pay for the animal if it falls face forward. If it falls on its back, you're not obligated to pay. And that's exactly what this brisa says. The nafal If it falls, it has to fall in the normal manner of falling. From here we see if it fell forward because of the noise, then you're obligated to pay. If it fell on its back, then you're not obligated to pay. The Bryce clearly says that it's falling in the pit. And if it falls on its back, you're not obligated to pay. It's exactly what Rav said. Shmuel would hold that you would be obligated to pay. So this Bryce supports Rav. New Gemara. Amar. Now we learned in the Mishnah that what happened? A guy dug a pit. Okay, let's see what the Mishnah said. The Mishnah said the guy dug a pit. And then he hired, let's say, a contractor to widen the pit. He dug the pit in Rishus Rabim, and he hired a guy with a jackhammer to widen the pit. That contractor made such noise that the animal got so scared and it fell into the pit. Now they're two different people. The owner of the pit, the one that dug the pit, and the contractor that's jackhammering and digging in the pit and widening the pit. So the Mishnah said that the one that's liable is the one that dug the pit. So the Gemara asks the question, Ba'amai, why is the one liable, the one that dug the pit? Nema, let the owner of the pit say, Koira Gorimle. It's because the guy who made the jackhammer was widening the pit, he was the one that caused the fright of the animal that caused it to fall into the pit. So why is the Balabar totally liable? Answers the Gemara, and this Gemara is teaching you something in lawsuits. That means you sue everybody, but if somebody can't pay for halachic reasons, so then you collect from the ones that could pay. And therefore, Amar Rav Shimi Barashi said, Hamani, our Mishnah goes according to Rav Nassan, the Amar who said, Balabar Hezekah Ka'avid. Really, the Balabar, he caused the damage. And the guy that's just jackhammering in the pit, that contractor is a grumma. He's only he didn't create the damage. He's causing the fright of the animal. And we have a halacha. If you cannot collect anything from one partner of the crime, you pay from the other one has to pick up the slack and pay the whole thing. It's very interesting. You're going to see an example like this right now. The Tanya, we learned in the Brayso. This is the opinion of Nassim. Let's say you have an ox that pushed another ox into a pit. Bala shar chayiv, the owner of the pit is chayiv to pay. Bala bar parta. The bala bar is not obligated to pay. Okay, so we look at the first one that caused the damage, and that was the ox, not the bal habar. Rav Nassan says no. Bala shalom mechza or bala bar shalom mechza. First, Rav Nassan says they split. The owner of the ox that pushed the other ox will pay half, and the owner of the pit will pay the other half. But says the Gemara of Tanya, but didn't we learn in the Brisa? Rav Nassan says Balabar b'shalom gimel chalakim. The Balabar will pay 75%, or Balashvar Ravia, and the Balashar will pay only a quarter. Now remember. How could it be? What did Rav Nassan say? First, Rav Nassan says they pay 50-50, and then Rav Nassan says the Baal Habar will pay 75% of the damages, and the Baal Shor will pay 25% of the damages. How do you reconcile these two Rav Nassans? Rav Nassan here and Rav Nassan over here. Like Kasha, it's not difficult. Hi, Batam, Bahai Bamuad. One is talking about a tam, and one is talking about a muad. That means when it's a tam, so the Baal Hashor at maximum would have paid 50%. So therefore, he gets off and only pays a quarter. So and the Balabar will pay the rest 75%. But when it's a muad, it would have paid 100%, but it has a partner. So then the Balashor will pay half, and the Balabar will pay half. So the Gemara wants to understand what's going on over here. Uvatam Mike Sover. If you're saying over here, this is talking about a tam where the Bal Habar will pay 75%, the Balashor will pay a quarter. Why is that? When two partners are doing a damage, each one is doing the entire damage, right? Each one is as if they did 100% of the damage. So therefore, hi mishalim palga, hi mishalim palga. So then each one should pay 50% of the damage, and this one should pay 50% of the damage. So because each one is as if they did 100% of the damage. So why is it one paying 75 and one paying 25? If when when the Balabar and the Balashar, really each one did 50% of the damage. You don't look at it as if they did 100% because they each shared the damage. So let's think about it. Balabar, since at max he should pay 50% of the damage, B'Shalom Paga, let him pay 50%. Ubalashar, since he's a Tam, right, Revi'ah should pay only 25%. Be'idich Riviv Mafsid, and the other one, the other quarter, the other person should lose. In other words, why is it this odd thing that the Balabar will pay 75% of the damage? He only participated in 50% of the damage. He's at fault 50%. Rava said, Rava explained, and then we'll get to the Iba Yisayim, and that's the main point. Rava explained, Rab Nosson Dayanahu v'nachas l'um kededina. You have to trust Rab Nosson. He understands law, and he came up with the right psak. Really, when the shor and the bar participated in this damage, in other words, when the shor pushed the other shor into the bar, both of them are liable 100%. I mean, they're both considered, the Balashar and the Balabar are considered 100% responsible. Nevertheless, so then each one should pay 50% of the damage. Each one should pay 50%. Because the Balashar will say to the Balabar, the fact is that you participated over here. You're my partner. So even without you, if there was no bar over here, the Balashar would anyway pay 50% because he's a Tam. So the fact that there's a Baal Habar over here involved in this crime should make it easier on the Baal Hashar. And therefore, the Baal Hashar could say, now that you're involved here, I'm going to only pay 25%, and therefore you pay 75%. That's the first teretz of the Gemara. But the main teretz of the Gemara is what we're about to say. Iba is saying, if you want, I could tell. Loilam Kusavar, High Balka Zeka High Balka Zeka. Each one, the Baal Hashar is really liable for just half the damages. The Baal Habar is liable for half the damages because that's it. Now, Uda Kakashalach, and your question was, Baal Habar Mishalim Paga. I understand the Baal Habar should pay half because he's liable for half. Baal Hashar, who is a Tam, Mishalim Revi'ah, should only pay a quarter because really whole damages would be half the damage. And so therefore, since it's a Tam, he should only pay a quarter. And the owner of the victim shar should only lose out a quarter. But the answer is, and this is the point, Mishum the Amale, because the victim shar says, the owner of the victim shar, the Baal Shar of the victim, will say, Baal Shar lebalabar, he's going to say to the owner of the pit, I found my dead ox in your pit. At ketalte, you killed it. Ma di islach whatever I could collect from the other shar, I'll collect, which I could only collect 25%. Mandalesle, whatever I can't collect, what you're going to have to pick up the slack. Whatever I can't pick up from him, I'll pick up from you. So very interesting what the Gemara just got through saying. There's this opinion called Rab Nosson. Rab Nosson says if two partners are in a crime and one can't pay because of a halachic reason, or he pays less because of a halachic reason, the law will be that the other partner will have to pick up the slack to make the victim whole. So same thing over here. When a guy dug a pit, right? A guy dug a pit and he hired a contractor the contractor made noise widening the pit and caused the shar to fall into the pit. Well, he's just a grumma. He just made a noise, so he's not really the damager. So if you can't collect from the guy making the noise, the total slack will now fall upon the Baal Habar, and he has to pay, because that's the opinion of Rab Nosson, and that's the explanation of our Mishnah. New Gemara, a continuation. Amar Rava said, Hiniach Evan al pi habar. A man put a stone at the edge of a pit. Okay, and a shark came and tripped over that stone and fell into the pit. Now you have two problems. You have this guy that put the stone there and the guy that dug the pit. That is the machlekes Rab Nosson Rabbanan. The guy that put the stone, really, he's just a cause of and therefore Rab Nosson says the guy that made the pit will have to pay. According to Rabbanan, the guy that the owner of the stone has to pay because he caused the whole collapse into the pit. And according to Rab Nosson, they split it, right? They split it. So that they could, and because the stone is not a grumma, actually. The stone is like a pit. And so you have two pits over here. So therefore, according to Rab Nosson, the owner of the stone and the owner of the pit pay it out, split it. According to Rabbanan, the guy that put the stone there is obligated to pay. So the Gemara says, Pshita, that's obvious. That's exactly what the Rabbanan hold and Rab Nosson hold. So why did Rav give this example? Answers the Gemara, Mao the same. I would have thought Hasam Huda by the case of Rab Nosson Rabbanan, where they actually argue, where a shar pushed another shar into the pit, the Baal Shbar could say to the Baal Shar, to the guy, to the other ox that pushed the shar into the pit, Ilav Bar Didi. Why am I responsible? If it wasn't for my pit, your ox gored this ox. It would have killed that ox. And therefore, you're responsible and you have to share it with me. But according to over here, maybe the guy that put the stone here would not have to share in the responsibility over here, even according to Rav Nosson. Why? The guy that put the stone here could say to the Balabar, if you didn't dig the pit and the shard just came and tripped over the stone, what would my have stone accomplished over here? Have a miskaba, if it would have tripped over the stone, have a nafel, it would have fell a little bit for kohen, got up. And it's only because you're the pit, you're more responsible than me, the guy that put the stone there. Kamash malam. So that's the chiddush of Rava, that according to Rav Nosson, the guy that put the stone there has to split in the damages. The Amalei, because the owner of the pit will say, you love Evan, but if you didn't put that stone there, have enough of the he would not have fallen into the pit. So that was Rava's extension of the machlekes between Rav Nosson Rabbana. Can even extend to where a guy puts a stone right at the edge of and causing an animal to trip over the stone and fall into a pit. New Gemara. Itma we learn. We go to Nun Gimel Lamed Beis. Shar v'shar psulei mikdashim. Shar belonging to Hegdish and a regular shar belonging to a regular person. Okay, psulei mikdashim is a shar that got a mum. Let's say you had a chatas that had a blemish. Now you can't bring it up onto the mizbeach, so it's psulei hamikdashim, and it wasn't yet redeemed, so it really belongs to Hegdish. So it's shar and shar belonging to Hegdish, and that's not liable. Shenakhu, they both gored an animal. Okay, they both gored an animal. So says the Gemara, Abaya says mishalem chatzi nezik. The shar that's belongs to a regular person will pay half the damages, and the shar psulim mikdashim, okay, will not pay anything. Ravina Amat Mashal Ravia Nezek, the guy that owns that shar, that's the plain guy that owns the shar, will pay a quarter of the damages. So how do you explain the machlekes? What is Abai saying half, and what does Ravina say Ravia? Haval batan. It's both talking about a tam. So tam pays half a nezek. Hakarabanan. So the first says that you pay half a nezek goes according to Rabbanan. That's that Rabbanan. The one that says you pay Rivia nezek, a quarter of the nezek, is because the shor tam would have to pay half. The shor psul mikdashim would have to pay half. So since the shor tam belonging to a person would pay half, and since it's a tam, you would only pay a quarter. But according to Rav Nosson, whatever you can't collect from psulim mikdashim, you collect from the shar belonging to the regular guy. So therefore, that's Abaya's opinion. Abaya paskin like Rav Nosson. Therefore, he said you pay chatzi nezek, because you're not going to collect anything from psulim mikdashim. So the shar belonging to the regular Jew will have to pick up the slack. If you want, I could say hava haka rabbanan. They both go according to rabbanan. So really, the shar belonging to the regular person would have to pay a quarter of the nezek. But the Ubaya who's saying you pay half the nezek was talking about when the shor was a muad. Hava haka haba tam, haba muad. One is talking about a tam, and one is talking about a muad. When it's a muad, Abaya will say you pay half the nezek, because you're not going to pay full nezek, because Rabbanim don't hold that whatever that the shar hedyot would have to pick up the slack over here. Iked de Amri, others say Abaya says chatzi nezek, Ravina Oma kula nezek. Just even more. Abaya says a shar psulim mikdashim. Both Abaya will say you pay half a nezek, and Ravina says you pay the entire 100% of the damage. Remember, it's a shar and a shar of Hegdish that did the damage, and yet we fully hold responsible in this damage the shar belonging to the regular person, to the regular Jew. Hava muad. It's both cases talking about when the animal is a muad, so he's supposed to pay 100% of the damages. Haka rabbanim, the one that says you pay half the damage, called like rabbanim, that since there's a partner in crime, you can't collect from the partner. The other partner just remains with his share, half a nezek. Rab Nosson. But the one that holds that you pay kule nezek, which is Ravina, he holds like Rab Nosson. And since you can't collect anything from Hegdish, so the guy that's the shar belonging to the regular person will have to pick up the slack and pay 100% of the damages. He wanted to tell you, Rab Nosson, they both hold like Rab Nosson, and therefore, one that says pay whole damages is talking about a muad. A muad pays whole damages. Since you can't collect from shar psula mikdashim, the guy shar hedyot will pick up the whole slack. Habatam, same thing. By tam, really you're supposed to only pay collectively 50% of the damages. Since you can't collect from shar psula mikdashim, the shar hedyot will have to pick up the slack and pay the full half of damage. Yeah. Okay, one more piece of the Gemara, and then we'll stop. Amar Rava. Okay, this is a simple piece of Gemara. It'll take us another 2 minutes. Amar Rava. Rava says, Shar the Adam shadachvu labar. Let's say a shar and a regular human being pushed another human being by accident into a bar. Okay, so now the Adam has a partner in this crime, another shar. Linyan is zak and kula chayavim. Regarding the damages caused to that human being, they're both chayiv. Remember, a bar is potter on damage on death of a human being, but it's chayiv on damages. So the shar and the adam will have to participate in the damages to the human being. When it comes to the nezek tsar ripu sheves and boishes, doctor bills and things like that, or if it's a miscarriage, then adam chayiv, shar bar paturim. The shar, a bar, a potter over here. Remember, there are 3 causes of the damage over here. Shar, the Adam that pushed the person into a bar. So therefore, whatever is not going to be paid for by the one party, the other one is responsible for that. And therefore, bar devarment meveladis only applies to the Adam. So Adam chayiv, Shar bar potter. These are obligations only on a shar and not on Adam bar. So that's what the Brisa says. Shar chayiv, Adam bar peturim. Le'inyan kalim, let's say vessels. So again, shar Adam pushed another person who was carrying, let's say, pots into the pit, and the pots all broke. So what's the din with the kalim? So obviously the bar is going to be potter, and the Adam and shar are going to be chayiv. V'shar psuli hamagdashim. Very interesting. You can push a shar into a pit. Now you're going to learn something new. A shar that was, let's say it was a shlomim, and it got a blemish, and it was redeemed. So really, it belongs, the kedusha of that shar was transferred over to another shar. But this shar psule mikdashim has a halacha that you could only use it to eat. But if it dies, you can't benefit from it. So therefore, if a shar psule mikdashim fell into a pit, so then Ardem Shar Chayavim for the Shar Psule Mikdashim. Bar will be potter on the Shar Psule Mikdashim. My tama, why is it that a bar that has a Psuli Hamigdash fall into it? Okay, is it not obligated to pay? Amakra v'hamesi yaloi. It's only if you can keep the carcass, but if you can't keep the carcass, then the bar would be potter. So here's a good trick question. Where do you find that an ox falling into a pit you're not obligated to pay? By shar psule hamikdashim, okay? Because there you can't benefit from the carcass, and the Torah says by a pit you have to benefit from the carcass. 1/2 a minute more. Lemeimer the pshita Rava. Did Rava know this for a fact? Rava had this as a question. The boy Rava said, Shar psula mikdashim shenafel the bar. Again, a shlomim that got a mum that you redeemed. So now it belongs to the owner, but it fell into a pit. Mahu, what's the din? Does Vamesi say that bar is only obligated to pay if you could keep the carcass? If the nizik can't keep the carcass, then the bar would be potter. Or do you say Vamesi it's coming to teach you that the bailam have to take care of the carcass? You can't say the mazik, oh, you take my carcass out of your pit. No, it's the victim has to be involved with that. So answer the Gemara, yes. Rava responded, had the question, and then he answered it. Yes, V'hamesi Eloi teaches you that Shar Psula and Mikdashim is not obligated, is not liable, the Balabar is not obligated to pay. So the Gemara says, then how do you use the pasuk? How do you find that at Bailam, we know that's the other halacha by a bar, that if a carcass, the victim has to deal with the carcass. The nizik has to deal with the carcass. How do you know that? It says by Mesi Eloi, the same pasuk by Shar, that Shar Nagach, the Torah tells you by Mesi Eloi. So therefore, that teaches you that Bailam metaplim benavela. So the Gemara asks one final question. My chazis, what drove you? The Vamesi Eloi to Shar, when it says the same words, Vamesi Eloi by Shar Nakhan, Mapketle, use that pasuk to teach you L'Bailam Metapel Meveil, that the victim has to be, the nizik has to deal with the nevela. Vamesi Eloi the bar, but when it says Vamesi Eloi the bar, Mapketle, you use that, Lemisha Mesuloi, that means that it's excluding Shar Psulim Ekdashim, that a bar is not obligated to pay. Eipachanal, let's turn it around. By Shar Nagach, we'll say that Shar Psulim Ekdashim, not Negicha doesn't apply. And V'Amesi Eloi by bar teaches you that Bailam Metaplim Benavela. And it says the Gemara finally, Stavra Gabi Potter Gabi Bar, Hoil Potter by Kalim. Bar has unique qualities to it that it's not always obligated to pay. But you see that Kalim fall into a bar, you're not obligated to pay. So Psulim Ekdashim that falling into a bar, you're also not obligated to pay. Says the Gemara, Adarab, just say the opposite. We see by Negicha, you're not obligated to pay. Sometimes you only pay 50%. And says the Gemara, but you never find by goring that they pay zero. By bar, sometimes you find that it pays zero by kalim. So therefore, we're going to use V'Hamesi Eloi to tell you that a bar has a unique thing to it, that a sharp Psulim Ekdashim falling into a bar, you don't have to pay. And by Negicha, sharp Psulim Ekdashim, you will have to pay. Okay, we'll just end over here.
Thank you.
Yeah, good enough.
Thank you. Good night.